In June 1987 in Toronto, Canada, 2-year-old Jermaine Allan Mann suddenly disappeared without a trace. And for more than 3 decades afterwards, the child's mother, Lyneth, was left to wonder what had become of her beloved son. Then in 2018, police in Connecticut uncovered a secret identity and finally revealed the terrible truth. Hello, wonderful people. I'm Scott Leffler for Wonderbot. And here is 31 years after this woman's son was abducted, New England police made a startling discovery. Before we begin, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more amazing videos. Born in 1985, Jermaine was just a baby when his parents, Jamaican-Canadian Lyneth and her partner Alan, decided to separate. But despite this unfortunate family development, Lyneth remembers Jermaine as a happy and energetic boy. According to the mother, in fact, Jermaine was blessed with huge brown eyes, had a penchant for grapes, and enjoyed dancing along to the radio. And although Lyneth and Alan called it quits in 1986, Jermaine continued to see his father during organized visitations. It was actually for one of these arranged meetups that on June 24, 1987, Alan was in Toronto, Canada. According to the initial plan then, Alan was supposed to return the boy to a dollar store on Islington Avenue in the north of the city. But Jermaine and Alan seemingly never appeared. So a panicked Lyneth justifiably reported her son as missing to the authorities. Yet even though police in Toronto conducted an exhaustive search, no trace of the boy could be found. In her late 20s at the time, Lyneth was understandably distraught by the disappearance of her only child. Over the years, a number of different agencies tried to get to the bottom of Jermaine's mysterious disappearance. But despite the involvement of the Missing Children Society of Canada, MCSC, they were seemingly no real leads. And as time continued to pass, the devastated mother could only continue to hope that one day she'd be able to see her son again. Lyneth said as much herself in a Toronto Star that appeared almost 2 years after Jermaine vanished. "I pray not to let it go on," she told the paper in 1989. "It's a sheer hell. Not a day, not an hour, not a minute goes past that I don't think of Jermaine. This is killing me inside." And with no way of knowing what had happened to her child, Lyneth had only her pictures as tangible reminders of Jermaine. In 1989, too, she used these images in an attempt to raise awareness of Jermaine's case. Lyneth, in fact, attended a picnic hosted by Canadian organization Child Find, which works to publicize cases of missing youngsters. The group then released 5,000 balloons, some of which contained photographs of Lyneth's lost son, over the Toronto suburb of Oakville. But despite these efforts, Jermaine's case remained cold. And even though authorities apparently suspected that Alan had abducted the boy and taken him over the border to the United States, police were unable to track the absent father down. Instead, they kept the story alive via relevant networks and publicized age progression photographs as the years passed. The Canadian investigators' efforts unfortunately failed to generate any leads, but they refused to give up on Jermaine. And across the border, there was seemingly equal dedication. For instance, the boy's story featured on the Charlie Project, which is a database dedicated to publicize missing person cases in the United States. Throughout Lyneth's ordeal, however, there was one man in particular who remained a beacon of hope: former policeman Ted Davis. Davis had been investigating the MCSC for almost 30 years, and according to Amanda Pick, who is the association's CEO, Davis exhibited an unusual dedication to solving Jermaine's disappearance. Davis made a promise to Lyneth and her family that he would do everything in his power to make sure that Jermaine was brought home. Pick told the Toronto Star in 2018. And finally in 2016, almost 30 years after the boy had vanished, there came a break in the decades-old case. That year, you see, Davis was attending a conference alongside representatives of the United States government as well as members of the Toronto Police Force. So at the event, the attendees began talking about Jermaine's disappearance. And with interest in the case sparked anew, it seemingly wasn't long before investigators had some fresh leads to follow. Then, by the end of summer 2018, investigators had made contact with a number of Alan's acquaintances. Some of them had even apparently suggested that the missing man might have made his way to Connecticut, almost 500 miles east of Toronto in New England. And one of Alan's friends also let slip a vital clue that would finally lead police to Jermaine. According to the source, you see, Alan was now going by a new name, Haley Randolph D'Souza. Now, armed with this alias, investigators were able to search official databases. as well as social media for the fugitive. And the authorities hit upon a match: a man and child residing in Vernon. This is a town close to the Connecticut capital of Hartford. With the answer to the mystery finally in sight, then, investigators enlisted the help of a forensic expert to crack the case. And by examining the driver's license photo that was on record for D'Souza's son, whose alias has not been released, the team were able to confirm what they'd been hoping for. He and Jermaine were probably one and the same. Modern technology has helped immensely in this case. Wayne Banks, who is a detective sergeant with the Toronto Police, told the Toronto Star in 2018. Once the potential subject was recognized, we used facial recognition throughout the US and Canada, where Mr. Mann was positively identified. So, against all the odds, investigators had finally managed to track down the missing boy, who's now a 33-year-old man. And on October 26, 2018, Allan was arrested at the Vermont apartment that he'd reportedly been sharing with Jermaine since 2004. Police suspect then that Allan had fled Toronto with his son and traveled to the United States. And while in America, Allan had apparently managed to acquire fake documents that had identified him and Jermaine as having been born in Houston, Texas. At first, though, the pair seemingly resided in the New York borough of Bronx, but the father and son had allegedly later moved on to North Carolina and then Connecticut, where they're thought to have lived for around 2 decades. In Vernon, Allan is also believed to have used false documents to register for a subsidized apartment. He'd apparently found employment as a trucker too, and an engineer, while his son works for the state. They lived basically a life of lies as to who they were and what they did, unbeknownst to Jermaine, Banks explained at a press conference. In fact, it appears as though Allan had told his son that Lyneth had passed away during childbirth. But when the father was arrested, the truth finally came out. And after his father's apprehension, Jermaine stood weeping in court as Allan was charged with making fraudulent statements to authorities. Yet, although the court touched upon the kidnapping allegations, Allan did not face charges relating to this crime. Instead, he's awaiting extradition to Canada, where he's expected to face further charges. Jermaine, meanwhile, is presumably coming to terms with the fact that his father's lied to him for most of his life and that his mother is still alive. Back in Toronto, though, Lyneth finally received the news for which she'd spent 3 decades waiting and hoping. "Words can't express what I feel," she said at a press conference in 2018. The words, "Your son is alive, we found him," that's breathtaking. And the mother then boarded a plane bound for Connecticut to reunite with her long-lost son. According to reports, in fact, Lyneth was overwhelmed to finally see Jermaine again after all these years. "I grabbed him and squeezed his head. I want to feel if he's real," she said. "I touched him and I said, 'Oh my God, my baby.'" And although Jermaine has not yet given any public interviews, Lyneth claims that her son touchingly remarked that they share the same eyes. So after reuniting with Jermaine, at least, Lyneth finally spent time with her son and learned all about his life over the past 31 years. For now, though, it remains unclear whether or not Lyneth and Jermaine will relocate in order to be closer to each other. Lyneth told reporters, however, that she has no desire to be separated from her boy again. What's more, the mom also spoke out about Allan and the drastic actions that he'd taken all those years ago. "I just thought it was sad for him to have done what he did," Lyneth told reporters. "You never take a child from its parent, no matter what." The mother is seemingly also doing her best to acknowledge the life that Jermaine has experienced up to this point. "I have to respect the fact that he was a child, he didn't know anything," she explained. "So, what was given to him, he had no choice but to live with that," Lyneth continued. "And so, in the name that he has right now, he would like me to respect that. Then I'm going to stand with him." That said, however, Lyneth also admitted that calling her son by his new moniker may be a struggle. "To me, my boy has always been Jermaine, so yes, that sticks for me," she explained. During the news conference, Lyneth also took the opportunity to thank those who had never stopped searching for a missing son, including MCSC and the authorities on both sides of the border. Moreover, the mom expressed hope that her story might inspire other parents to keep the faith in times of desperation. "I am the proof that after 31 long years of suffering, 31 long years one should never give up," Lyneth explained. "But be patient, be strong, and believe that all things are possible and that anything can transpire." Meanwhile, John Durham, Connecticut's U.S. attorney, spoke in support of all the investigators who had worked hard to bring Jermaine home at last.